everybody hear me? We good? No.
Oh, okay, now we're good. All right, perfect. Okay, so while I'm getting this pulled up, and I'm going to blame myself 100% for this, there were a few things in the introduction that I'm going to have to run down just to, whoa, where'd it go? Come on, PowerPoint, there we go, perfect. There's a remote around here somewhere?
Yeah.
All right, we'll get everything situated. I talk a mile a minute, so I probably confused a lot of the things that I was offering for the introductory bio and whatnot. But we are correct, my name is Salais, I am from Arizona. I'm the director of the Atheist Candidates Project. I started 2 secular student alliance groups, but I only mentioned one to you. And the Atheist Candidates Project is actually fairly new. So for the past 5 years, the latter half of this decade, a bit longer than that, we've seen a lot of growth in atheist activism in the state of Arizona. And I want to talk to you about that, some of the successes we've had, and I want to make sure, before we start, I've got some disclaimers, and the first one is, when I was asked, did you have the idea to start this? I was hesitant to say yes, because I did technically start this project, but the project and the lessons learned that built the foundation for what we're trying to do nationally, that I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, people who were incredibly successful at what they did in the state of Arizona, and we're hoping to take that nationwide. So that's the first disclaimer. Second, the opinions and views expressed in this presentation are solely those of the speaker and do not necessarily represent the views, opinions, or policies of the atheist community of San Jose. It is a 501c3, so following up on that, the content of this presentation was not in any way reviewed or authorized by the atheist community of San Jose and does not constitute an endorsement, express or implied, of any candidate named herein. Now you are safe from legal liability when I proceed to endorse people. All right. So, the Atheist Candidates Project was built on a history over the course of this, the latter portion of this decade, of recruiting and running and succeeding with getting atheists elected in Arizona, which I'm sure no one the only monument to atheism he's aware of is Auschwitz. Yeah. This is Dr. Kelly Ward. She believes chemtrails are a thing and that we should be concerned about it. She is currently running for the United States Senate. She used to be in the Arizona State Legislature. This man is Congressman Paul Gosar. He called a Holocaust survivor a Nazi collaborator. Mayor Jeff Surtee, he's the mayor of Apache Junction. He lives in a city that's in a county that is currently struggling with water. A subdivision about 40 minutes south of him had their water shut off, and the people who live there have to drive 40 minutes to a standpipe to get water, and he doesn't think we should be concerned about climate change in the desert. Representative Kelly Townsend, you may have seen some news about this. She's the one who made the mistake of asking people on Twitter to explain to her what a furry is. This is Representative Mark Fincham. He believes the Constitution was inspired by God and is based on the 10 Commandments. Give you another couple here before we get to the big one. Congresswoman Debbie Lesko, she was one of the folks behind the attempt at a massive expansion of what they call empowerment scholarship accounts. School vouchers to allow you to take public school money and use it for private schools, often parochial schools. And then Representative Bob Thorpe introduced legislation to ban schools and universities from teaching any content that promotes social justice towards a race, gender, religion, political affiliation, social class, or other class of people. And this came, thankfully this failed, but this came after we banned ethnic studies in our state. Which is, incidentally, the ban has been repealed by the courts. So that's a win for us. And our crown jewel, former Maricopa County Sheriff and convicted criminal Joe Arpaio. So not all of these have to do with religion. They do all seem to have the same religion in common. But I want to be clear that what we are dealing with in Arizona isn't just an epidemic of religious viewpoints being imposed on residents and citizens of the state of Arizona. It's a general epidemic of a lack of skepticism, a lack of critical thinking. And that's something that we have to change. So why do we need the Atheist Candidates Project? We need elected officials who govern based on facts, not nonsense. We need elected officials who understand the value of science in policymaking. We need elected officials who believe reason is more important than convictions. And we need elected officials who are willing to put good before their gods. That's why we need this project. So let's jump into some of the progress that we've made in the state of Arizona. A bit of a history lesson here. So in 2012, we had 2 atheists run for school boards. 1 ran for the state legislature, and 2 ran for Congress. 3 of those 5 won their races. In 2014, this is exciting, but it gets even better. So 2014, we had 3 run for school board, 3 run for the state legislature, 3 for Congress. One sec. Legislature. Yeah. A little dry. All right. 3 run for Congress. 4 out of those 9 won their races. In 2016, this last cycle, we had 3 run for school board, 5 run for the state legislature, 1 for a healthcare district, 1 for county board of supervisors, 2 for city councils, 1 for state treasurer, and 3 for Congress. Half of them won their races. And this is Arizona today. Now, that number's actually wrong. We've added 3 more. So there's 26 atheists running for public office just in the state of Arizona. And Arizona's not all that special. That's one of the things I want to get across. We're not special. We didn't have just this perfect storm of atheism moving into politics here. What we did was we ran people. We ran people we knew we were going to lose. We created visibility. And through very good public relations campaigns, through strong efforts to show that atheists believe the same things that most other Americans want. We care about the same issues. We're just as American as everybody else. We encourage more people to run. So I'm going to talk about this fellow here. This is James Woods. He ran for Congress in Arizona's Congressional District 5. Which is currently occupied by Representative Andy Biggs, who today had an op-ed in USA Today defending Donald Trump's statements in Helsinki. He was a game changer for atheism and politics in Arizona. And he was part of a team, so it wasn't just James Woods. I did a little bit of consulting on a humanist response to ISIS, some foreign policy stuff. And then the core people that I want to talk about specifically are Sarah Blaine and Evan Clark. You might know some of these names. Evan Clark is the chairman of the board of directors for the Secular Student Alliance, and Sarah Blaine was the executive director of the Secular Coalition for Arizona. Currently one of the people who runs Spectrum Experience, the only humanist PR firm in the country. They turned his campaign into a PR-oriented campaign and managed to get coverage on CNN, national and international news coverage for him with a shoestring budget of $67,000 for a congressional candidate. That's not a lot of money for a congressional campaign. But what they did was, they didn't hide his atheism. He was open about being an atheist. But he didn't run on atheism. He ran on things that people care about. And this is one of those examples of a smart PR campaign. Every year, these pro-life organizations, these anti-choice organizations, send out letters to candidates, these questionnaires that they have to fill out. And usually it's you check all the boxes, and then you sign that you agree to all of their stuff. Otherwise, they may be hostile towards you. The NRA does this kind of stuff too, and it's a strong-arm tactic. I'm sure there's organizations on the left that do it as well, but this is what he was getting as a liberal candidate. So the response was, we can't just not return the questionnaire, which is usually what candidates do. If they know they're not going to get the endorsement, they just don't return the questionnaire. Instead, they had campaign condoms made up that said prevent abortion, and they sent it to the organizations. And the feminist blogosphere exploded overnight. So messaging on issues that matter to people who aren't atheists, issues that permeate religious lines, issues that we all care about that don't have anything to do with our atheism. This is how we normalize atheists running for public office. So I'm going to show you a video here. This is from a campaign that they did on gun control. And keep in mind, in this video he doesn't mention that he's an atheist. But this sort of smart advertising is one of those things that pushes him in front of the national audience and gives him the kind of notoriety that can help elevate the rest of atheists running for public office. It helps to dissuade those misconceptions about who we are as people. Do we have audio on here? Oh, I should have told you that I needed that. How do I fix that? Hold on. You just put the microphone close to it? Is that? Oh, good. Okay. It's fine.
All the tools, we don't always set them up.
Well, and sometimes they don't work. Yeah, it happens, right? Well, I'll talk a little bit about it. James, I'll give you a little background on him. So James has an incredible story. And he was actually one of the victims of our healthcare system in the United States. He became ill a few days, I think about 8 days from his employer-provided health insurance kicking in. He was on a probationary period, and he was hospitalized. Oh, well, I guess I could start playing it. I'll play this, and then I'll give you the story. Improv here. Nope. Where's the volume key? Oh, there it is. We getting it?
It's about the guns and how available they should be. But I don't think most people realize how available they currently are. Recently, I went to a gun show with my father. In less than an hour, I was able to walk out with a fully functional .38 revolver. No ID required, no background check, no questions asked. And it only cost $100. We need to stop arguing about things we all agree on. Americans overwhelmingly support background checks, and they are proven to work.
It's not a gimmick. He's actually blind. And the way he got to this point was he ended up being hospitalized. He had MRSA. And for lack of insurance, he received subpar treatment. He lost portions of his shoulders, toes. He had kidneys fail, pancreas fail. And when the infection took his sight, he now had a disability, and he was covered by Medicare. He signed his paper to run for Congress from the hospital bed. That is an incredible story. And it's a story that resonates with people and allows them to see right past that atheist label. As, you know, this person may be an atheist, but I know enough about this person's background. I know enough about what they've gone through that I can empathize with this individual. I can care about them, and I know that when they tell me they care about my health care, they mean it. Now, you folks in this room may have various positions on guns. I'm not trying to sell an anti-gun position here, but this is an effective ad. This reaches people, and whether or not he's an atheist doesn't distract from the message he was trying to convey with that advertisement. All right, so let's move on to some of the former candidates. I'm going to tell you a little bit about them. So Beth Weiser on the left, she ran for the state senate in LD5, which is very rural, includes most of the Mojave County all the way down to Yuma, big chunk of the western portion of the state. She ran on an education platform. That was what she was concerned about. Kara Pryor one of her big issues was actually animal euthanasia. I mean, we touched on a lot of things, but like she really cares about the fact that Maricopa County and Pinal County have obscenely high, much higher than average euthanasia rates for animals in county facilities. Joe Downs just ran on common sense, like financial policy for state treasurer. This gentleman on the left here ran in Prescott, Arizona, and he was actually outed as gay on a radio show. They decided to let everyone in Prescott know that he was a gay man. But like, he wasn't running on being gay. He wasn't running on being an atheist. He was running on issues that the people of Prescott cared about. The man in the middle here ran for the Tempe City Council. He's big on protecting the character of existing neighborhoods, and it's a growing city, so it was all about the neighbors for him. That's Matthew Serra. I don't know as Michael Serra. Sorry, Matthew Serra's an actor. I don't know as much about his campaign, but here's some other candidates you might recognize. We have Aaron on the left. He was running for the state legislature in Texas. Shawnee Rios ran a very aggressive campaign in Knoxville for their 6th district city council seat, and the smears against her were severe. But it also means that she had a shot at that seat. And then Gail Jordan, who a lot of people in here should be familiar with. She ran for Senate in Tennessee, I believe. A few more former candidates. Simon Goldstein, I couldn't find any of his campaign pictures, just him dressed as Columbo. I hope you all enjoy that. He ran for Maricopa County Healthcare District, and his message was, we've got $1 billion to work with. Do you want someone to spend that responsibly? Talk about responsible spending of our healthcare dollars. Here we have Scott Pryor. Oh, lost him. Where'd he go? Scott Pryor on the right. He also ran in Arizona's Legislative District 16 with his wife, Kara. He was running for the state Senate. And then this character, wonderful, wonderful fellow. This is Michael Weiser. He is the state director for NORML in Arizona. His big issue is, like, the core issue for him is marijuana, but also criminal justice reform and ending private prisons. None of these things have anything to do with atheism, but they are open atheists who can demonstrate to people that atheists are perfectly capable of being moral. We're perfectly capable of caring about the issues that you care about, and we can represent you and do it well. So I'm going to show you some of the elected officials. On the left is Kirsten Sinema. She is one of our, she's a congresswoman from Arizona. She's currently running for Senate to represent us in the U.S. Senate. The label she uses is agnostic. She's backed away from the term a little bit, but we do have an open non-believer serving in the U.S. House of Representatives. The man in the middle is Patrick Morales. He recently ran for the Tempe City Council on a platform focused on economic justice. He is currently serving on the Tempe Elementary School Board. Ryan Winkle was a seated Mesa City Councilman. Mesa happens to occupy, most of Mesa occupies the most conservative congressional district in the country. It's 2 points more conservative than the state of Alabama. He won a city council seat by knocking on doors and talking to voters about issues that mattered to them. His atheism didn't matter. A couple of the heroes of our movement, Athena Salmon, whose invocations I'm sure you've seen online, and Juan Mendez, they both represent Legislative District 26 in Tempe, Arizona, in the state House of Representatives and Senate, respectively. And then we have Katie Pates, who is the president of the Osborne School District. Some current candidates, J.P. Martin is running in Tucson. He's running for the state Senate. The gentleman in the middle is Scott Minor. He was a candidate for Congress in Arizona. On the right, we have Noah Dyer. You probably saw him on The Daily Show. I apologize on behalf of my state. He is a gubernatorial candidate. On the left, we have Brianna Westbrook, who is also a trans candidate who ran for Congress in Congressional District 8, a very conservative district. In the middle, we have Alacia Sear. She's running for Justice of the Peace. Jen Duff is running for a city council seat in Mesa, again. Joan Green on the left is running for Congress in Arizona. Kathy Hoffman is running for State Superintendent of Public Instruction, which is currently occupied by a young earth creationist. And Dr. Kathy Moore Almeida is running for the state Senate. None of these folks are running on atheism. They're running on the things that really matter. couple more here. Rebecca McHood ran for State House of Representatives, and then Talia Fuentes ran for Congress in Congressional District 9. Got a few in Texas. Oh gosh, he's going to kill me. I just forgot his name. Google image search him. Danielle Pellet is running for Congress in Texas. Roy Carl Stanley was a congressional candidate in Texas. So that's, just to put some faces to it, give you a little bit of background on some of these candidates and what is making a difference for them to be able to run and be successful. Now, I want to break down representation with the current set of candidates that I've shown you. This is a little off because we're missing 2 of them. Representation is something that matters, not just for atheists, but for other groups. And when people look at our groups, they see our groups as groups of old white men. That's a stereotype of atheist groups, is it's a bunch of old white men. And we know that America is made up of more than old white men. Like, we want our groups to be inviting to everybody, and ideally our group should be cross-sectional, right? So well representative. With the atheists that we have running right now, we have half of them are women. 16 are women, 16 are men, 13 of them are millennials, 9 are lesbian, gay, bi, or transgender, and 8 of them are people of color. This tells us that our movement is actually gaining in diversity in addition to political visibility, and that's something that we should all be proud of. So let's look at Arizona's future. Now, I'm going to wrap this in a statistician's caveat here and say that the sample size of 26 that we have is not statistically sufficient for us to be able to have significance. But if we were to continue on this trend, I like charts, by 2028 we would have 50 atheists running in Arizona. We have seen year-on-year growth, and that's something that we should be proud of. So why am I telling you all of this? Why am I boring you with all of these facts and all of these portraits? Atheists are running for public office. Atheists are growing in diversity. Atheists are far better supported than we anticipated. And atheists win elections. So let's finally get to the Atheist Candidates Project. Our mission is to eliminate barriers to entry that atheists often face when seeking public office. We can break this down into 3 components. So this is the training of atheists who are interested in running, building support infrastructures around candidates, and developing a robust network of professionals and volunteers to support those campaigns. We are crowdsourcing political engagement from atheists, so building a database of volunteers, professionals looking to work with atheist candidates in their area. And our motivation is the simple fact that 1 in 5 Americans are religiously unaffiliated. We are one of the most severely underrepresented groups in this country, and that's something that needs to change. So version 1.0 of the project, what we started with after the 2016 election, emphasized networking, indirect volunteer recruitment, and professional recruitment, didn't provide any organizational or training support, and asked that professionals donate their time where they could. It assumed that the demand for atheists would have to be developed over several election cycles, as we thought was the case in Arizona. We were wrong, and for a good reason. The project was overwhelmed quickly, so within 3 months we received over 152 requests for support and participation. That's enormous for an organization with very little media coverage that had just been on a couple of podcasts and talked in front of a couple groups. Part-time work was not sufficient to keep up with the demand. There were insufficient resources to focus on both fundraising and supporting candidates. There was too much work to depend on volunteer labor, and professionals needed to prioritize their paying clients over pro bono work, which makes sense. We all like to eat food, I assume, right? So here's how the project has to change. Networking works in early stages of a movement. It became clear that our movement, the secular movement and the atheist political movement, is mature, but we need resources. The Atheist Candidates Project has to rise to meet that movement. Building a sustainable elections-focused movement requires paying our professionals. The project must enable candidates to fundraise and to pay for the services from atheists and allied professionals. We are stronger when our professionals can depend on us for revenue. Meeting the demand for atheist officials requires full-time commitments. This project must hire capable, full-time communications, organizing, and training staff to provide the support candidates need. So, our halfway point, so to speak. Continuing development of a volunteer network, onboarding new professionals, recruitment of new candidates for the 2020 election cycle, and a shit ton of fundraising. Version 2.0 is what we're hoping to get to by November. And this will probably be by the end of the year. But when we reach our initial fundraising goal of $90,000, we'll be able to hire a full-time development director to guarantee we can keep having revenue coming in to support our mission. The project will be launching candidate support packages, so a basic way for them to enter that gives candidates access to subscriptions at rates that gets them access to a subscription, providing them support from professionals at a rate of $30 per hour, which is a hell of a good deal for a lawyer or a graphic designer or a web designer. It's something just to incentivize participation, but it also requires buy-in from the candidates. We should be supporting our community at large. This makes joining the project valuable for both candidates and professionals. A web-based portal for candidates to access the volunteer network, guides, free resources for candidates, and the step-by-step instructions for running is also in the process of being built out. So by February of next year, I'm hoping to have hired a national training director and communications director. We'll be opening the first office to serve as our headquarters and a regional field office in a target city that we've identified early, a place where we know we can win. Version 2.2 in May. Finished development of our web-based trainings and education materials to prepare atheists for running their political campaigns. Finish the development of training materials and web-based trainings for groups like yours seeking to support atheist candidates. And finish the development of a comprehensive and unified atheist candidates communication strategy, including development of comprehensive issues framing and earned media guides. And this is when we'll be launching the Atheists for America hashtag campaign, where we are connecting people who are open about their atheism, talking about issues, not just being an atheist. 2.3, August of 2019. This is where we hire a regional training staff, and we'll be deploying the Atheist Candidates Training and Investment and Organizing Network, or ACTION, to begin the scheduling and training of local groups to recruit candidates, manage campaigns, and support grassroots elections activities. You're getting the full roadmap here. Sorry if I'm boring you to death. December of 2019 is when we hire our national organizing director. This is the step where we actually begin targeting key winnable districts and begin recruiting people to fill spots on ballots for those districts. Version 3.0. When we get to February of 2020, hiring our regional organizing directors, opening regional field offices so we can provide more regionalized support to candidates and organizations directly, and then recruitment of regional organizing fellows, volunteers, staff, and interns. March of 2020. This is when we want to start doing in-person candidate trainings, where we can actually meet up with your group, do workshops on recruitment and training and preparing candidates, managing campaigns, and also meet with the candidates one-on-one to get them competent on the basics of being a candidate in whichever state they live in. And then development of regional organizational and communication strategies. May of 2020, the launch of the Atheist Candidates hashtag and video campaign. And then, of course, win all the things, right? So there are a few more steps in between. Like, we talked a little bit about fundraising and like the hiring process, but that's our goal. That's the trajectory by November of 2020, and it is aggressive. It is very aggressive. And I'm hoping that we can be successful in achieving this, and I'm confident because I believe that the people who want to make it work in their local communities are already there. So what's next? Take out your phones. All right, let me see the phones. All right, everyone's got your phones out. Awesome. All right. I want to keep all of you involved in the project, and I'm going to be sending out, once we get through the end of this election cycle, we're going to be sending out updates on the project, updates on candidates who are running in your area, to let you know who you can support, how you can get involved, when we need money. I need you to pull out your phones and text the word atheist to 24587. Everyone got it? Just your regular text messaging. Oh, you're exempted then. Don't worry about it. You're good. So everyone who texts, text atheist to 24587. Anyone still need this up? We're good? All right, let's move on to the next slide. So the other thing we're going to need is broader exposure. Do you have a podcast? Do you have connections to other groups that might be interested in hearing about and supporting this project? Do you have a blog? Can you write about the project? How can you help get us exposure? If you have a platform, we need that platform. Consider hosting me or one of our candidates on your show. Talk about the issues with one of our candidates. Like, introduce them to a new audience that can help get the project additional exposure. And then the next thing you can do is you can register to volunteer. You can join us as a professional. If you have web design skills, if you're a graphic artist, if you're a lawyer, if you're an accountant, or you're just really good at managing books, let us know. Jump on our website, go to atheistcandidates.com, register there. And if you have skills that can help support a candidate who needs a professional and wants to support a professional in our community, we can connect them with you, and they can pay you. Also, I don't want to ask for your money, but I do need your money. And I'm told I'm not allowed to go home unless I raise something. Right? So you can make a one-time donation at atheistcandidates.com or become a sustaining supporter either there or on Patreon. I also have a card reader and a tablet with me if you want to donate in person. We need resources. And I came out of the Catholic Church. I know most of us have come out of religious traditions, and one of the things that bothers us most as atheists is the fact that we were duped by a religious organization that took our money for years, and we're never going to get any of that back. Our professionals, our organizations, our groups like this group need resources to be successful, to grow, to be able to normalize being an atheist in America. There's no collection plate. But you know that when you're donating within your own community to causes you care about, that it is going to something that is actually going to produce good and not lie to people. It's not funding the income of a pastor. Joel Osteen isn't going to use it to whiten his teeth. Like, you're good on that. And you and only you can help us build a more secular society by supporting our fight for fair representation in government. Whatever way you can support us. Not everyone can donate. Not everyone can go out and walk and knock on doors. Not everyone has the time to be able to contribute to extra side projects. Whatever it is you can do, whether it's attending meetings like this, or if you can get in touch with a candidate, make some phone calls on behalf of that candidate, send some text messages, tell your friend who can donate to someone, or to donate to the Atheist Candidates Project. We all need to be involved in this if we are going to push our government into a more secular and rational space than it is today. So that's the presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, and I am happy to take any questions you might have. Oh. Yes.
Did you consider other Thank you for the presentation. Really well done. Did you consider other branding? You mentioned one candidate was more comfortable with agnostic. Did you think about agnostic or secular instead of atheist because of the political implications?
I did, and in part it wasn't because of the political implications of using the word, but it was because for a little bit I was debating as to whether or not this project should be a big tent for people who support our issues. Like if a Muslim candidate wanted to run and have a very strong stance in opposition to religious encroachment in government. And that's often the case. You find religious minorities in this country are often our best allies. I thought maybe a big tent project would work, but I decided on atheist because people know what that word means, or at least they think they know what that word means. But at least when you say atheist, someone has an idea of what an atheist is. David Silverman used to talk at length about this, and he talked at length about it in his book, and the data on it is pretty clear. People don't know what a humanist is. They don't know what secular means. They think they do. They don't know what a free thinker is. They don't know what a bright is. No one knows what a bright is. But they know what an atheist is. And if we wear that label, and we wear it proudly, we'll actually be communicating something to that voter. Whereas with secular or humanist or bright or free thinker, we may be communicating the values and the campaign's issues, but we're not communicating the most important piece of identity that we're trying to get across. Yes.
This is your shortest question of the evening. Why Arizona?
You know, that, I think you gave me, you primed me on that one earlier, I think, but I said a little bit earlier that Arizona isn't special. The reason, answering why Arizona, isn't that there was we had the perfect storm of events come together that make this possible, and Arizona is becoming, I mean, it is becoming, to a degree, more tolerant, but we were seeing some political backlash, that kind of thing, too. Like, we ran people. That's really it. We're not all that special. Like, you run atheists in Tennessee and South Carolina and, you know, Georgia, and we get a whole bunch of them running in Kansas and like Mississippi. The same thing will happen. We have groups and organizations that already support us, that are our communities. We got the Humanist Society in Phoenix, and the Atheist Meetup Group, and our Freedom from Religion Foundation in Scottsdale, and you have the Atheist community of San Jose, and there's a Humanist community out here, I understand, that used to have a brick and mortar building, and that's awesome. The groups are already there. All they need are people to step up and proudly wear their name. That's it. Like, Arizona's not special. I wish I could say it was, but the fact that it isn't special means that this is something that we can duplicate across the country.
Thanks again for the talk. You gave numbers of candidates in terms of absolute numbers, in tens of 20s. But what percentage of that is the total number of candidates? Are we still in the 0.1% level, or 5%? Or
we are still on the low end, but we're growing at a pretty impressive pace. There are, as I understand it, and I have to check the most recent numbers on it, but I think we might actually have as many atheists running for public office in the United States as there are Muslims running for public office. Like, we've climbed pretty rapidly. So, and then obviously we make up a larger percentage of the population than our Muslim friends and neighbors do, but that means we've got a lot more work to do. But it's not going to be that hard for us to get there. And if Arizona is an example of what happens when you just run serious candidates who are speaking to people and talking about the issues that people care about, we're a matter of, I hope to have in 2020 250 atheists running for public office in the United States. And I don't see any reason why we couldn't double that in 2022.
Hi, all the states you've mentioned explicitly are red states.
Mm-hmm.
So here in Northern California, or California in general, is a blue state. And I'm wondering, from your point of view, if it's even an issue in a lot of cases, because here, maybe no one really cares whether you're an atheist or not, if there's any point in making it a position.
Well, in California, that means you've already won, if that's the case. And you folks have it good here. California's a great state. But I would imagine there are still pockets of California where being an atheist is problematic. And I see some eye rolling, and like, you're thinking of specific pockets out in the desert, maybe a little closer to Nevada, yeah. But like, those folks still need to feel like there are people who are making an effort to represent them. And even if they are going to lose the race, and this is something that I make an effort to drive home when we're talking about politics, like, oh, why are you investing all this time in a candidate who's guaranteed to lose? Well, a candidate who is statistically guaranteed to lose is a PR opportunity. You're not running that campaign to win. You're running that campaign to get a message out. And by virtue of being a candidate, media is more likely to pay attention to them. In addition to that, when we look at numbers on ballots, we want to count ballots. And you're talking about up-ballot elections. Michael Weiser, the gentleman who was against the green background with the joint in his hand and the money tie, it was a fantastic look that Spectrum Experience put together for him, by the way. He managed to turn out an additional 6,000 votes in his district over the previous election cycle when he also ran. That 6,000 votes wasn't enough to get him elected, but it could have gotten us a governor. It could have snagged us any number of statewide offices that otherwise would have lost by a small margin, because people didn't step out in districts they knew they would lose and fight for those votes. So even in California, there's good reason for it. But if you live in an area that being an atheist isn't really a big deal, support candidates in states that you don't live in. Let's flip Alabama. And I think these two gentlemen here had a couple questions.
Just a quick one then on the Republicans. Is there anything in the platform that says you have to be religious?
I'm sorry, I'm not
Like,
sure.
could you have an atheist Republican candidate? Is there anything to prevent that from happening?
Possible? Oh, good. That's good news. It's possible, but I find it implausible. And I think when you look at, like, Tulsa's Republican Party released their platform, and I think in 4 places in their official party platform was an acknowledgement of God and that the country is a Christian nation and all of this other nonsense. The Republican Party today is not what it was 2 decades ago. It's not the party of Reagan, even though he's their patron saint. It's something much different now. And what we're seeing from elected Republicans throughout the country, and this isn't all of them, but there is an open hostility towards non-believers and religious minorities. And I would like to see a Republican Party that can come back to the table and have really serious discussions about issues and just disagree from a conservative standpoint. I would be fine with that. But there are conservative atheists who cannot associate themselves with a party that they know is hostile towards their basic human rights. So they register as Democrats or Independents or Libertarians. So it's possible, yes, absolutely, and there's one in Missouri. But I don't see a whole lot of Republicans lining up to support the Atheist Candidates Project, especially since one of our non-negotiable things that you have to agree with is that human beings have a right to bodily autonomy. That includes a woman's right to control her own body. That includes the right of a trans person to control their own body. You don't get to decide what someone can and cannot do with their body, and the GOP is not on board with that right now. Again, what I'm saying does not reflect the opinions of this organization. Yeah.
So I have a couple of clarifying questions. So is the Atheist Candidate Project a super PAC?
No.
No. How is it different from a super PAC?
So
then?
a PAC is essentially able to work on behalf of a candidate, and they operate specifically for, largely for political communication, running independent expenditures,
Okay.
things of that nature. We can't be a nonprofit because we are directly involved with candidates, and it's possible to be a nonprofit and do this work, but you're walking on eggshells. Very thin ice there. You make a mistake, you could lose that nonprofit status. So it is technically a for-profit corporation, just because that's just the classification it has to go into.
Yeah. Okay. Is donations? Do you have to publish names of people who make donations?
We're under no legal obligation to do that, but we will be doing it because, well, not necessarily the names of, if it's a private donor who gives $20, we're not publishing the name of
like
someone
John
who said,
Smith or something.
my family doesn't support me being an atheist, but I think this is important. Like, there's a level of anonymity there that I think is important, but if a big organization's kicking us a check, and like, I see no reason why we shouldn't report that, and we will also be offering full financial disclosures, because it's important for us to have transparency.
So we've all been on the receiving end of some very unfortunate candidates getting elected to office. And can you just speak a little bit about the vetting process that...
That's a really good question. And I don't think I'm going to have the best answer here. But again, honesty is important, transparency is important. What we need in some places is just visibility. So we will take any candidate who is willing to recognize rights to free speech, freedom of the press, bodily autonomy, real religious freedom, where you have freedom of conscience regardless of what your beliefs are, and the state doesn't interfere with that. And if they are willing to run, if they're receptive to the training, and they're willing to put in the work, then I have no issue with them running. But if it's a candidate who is a disaster artist, to pull the name of a recent film, they're likely not going to make it that far, because running for office takes a lot of work. If they're not willing to put in that effort, they're not going to make it very far, and the volunteers and staff who have shown up to support them won't be there very long. they will go work for someone who is actually going to put in the effort. So it kind of weeds out, weeds out people on its own. In the back.
This may seem like kind of a silly question, but one of your slides mentioned earned media. What is that?
So earned media is a term that's used to describe media that's, I'm trying to like break it down a little bit here. So owned media is media that you own, that you've created internally and you own that. Earned media is media that you have attracted, in a sense. You've done something and that generates press activity and attention for you. So when we look at the condom stunt, for example, where they sent the condoms out and the anti-choice organizations just lost their collective minds, the earned media that resulted from that was coverage on CNN. And it cost all of $15. Does that clarify that? Yeah.
Anybody else have questions?
I'm here all night. Yes. Microphone's coming up behind you.
I noticed on the website that you list, I think, the 6 of those, freedom of the press and those sorts of things, but they're like a little very short paragraph. Do you have a longer document that really fleshes out what is meant by each one of those small points yet?
Not at the moment. That's something that we're still trying to hash out because we need to avoid putting ourselves in a scenario where we're essentially accidentally adopting one party's, like a chunk of one party's platform. This needs to be fair. Like, it needs to be core values that are non-negotiable for communities like ours, but aren't exclusionary. And again, I don't expect we're going to have a whole lot of Republicans or conservatives, and there's going to be some libertarians. I doubt there'll be a significant population of libertarians, because there's not a significant population of libertarians. But the well, probably more now. It needs to be something that we can, I think we can justify as relating to our secular and often humanist values without making it appear as if we are overtly partisan. Does that make sense? So to answer your question, no, not right now. But yes, soon.
All right, I think we have one last one here.
Has the Atheist Candidates Project considered working with like science organizations or other types of organizations to try to kind of crack the political science psyche of basically the people that were up against?
Could you
kind of a difficult
elaborate
question.
a little bit? I'm not sure I understand the question.
It's kind of like think tanking almost, how the conservatives have the Heritage Foundation, and there's the Cato Institute. Is there any, do you know of any sort of not left wing, but more science-based think tank organizations that you guys, or that this organization is
There
tied
are
to?
some options for us, but one thing that I am concerned about is when you look at some of these organizations, such as the Heritage Foundation, and the fact that they are very influential on donors, and they have a lot of influence they can swing around. That influence results in favorable policy. And I want to be sure that if we are aligning ourselves with an organization, it's because our values are already aligned and it's not for their money. We cannot do the same thing that's resulted in the present scenario we have with our Congress. And as long as I'm running the project, I won't allow it. But organizations that are where we're already value aligned, we're pursuing science-oriented policy, where we're seeking out the best available data instead of basing things on nonsense and woo. Absolutely, let's work together. Happy to do that, and I will be happy to ask them for their support and their endorsement and some PR help and whatever cash they can kick our way. So.
All right, I think we're going to end it officially there, but I think, Andre, you're going to hang around.
Yeah, absolutely. I understand there's food in this place. So I'll be sticking around for a bit. Well, feel free to let me know if you have any other questions. I'm going to be here for a while. Also, I brought a tablet with me with a card reader, so I will be happy to take any donations you would like to offer to help us get this project off to a fantastic start at the end of the year and help us hire our development director. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.